Welcome to Rock That Relationship, a podcast about all things relationship with Corey and Tracy.
Now let's get real and start creating relationships that rock.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rock That Relationship. We are here today talking about getting unstuck. We've been having all these great conversations about how to get unstuck, but what happens if you try and you just can't, right? Either you don't unstick yourself, you just can't figure it out, or the unsticking process is so painful and it doesn't really end up being successful or going the way that you wanted. How do you develop a sense of resilience? So let me start by asking you this question, Tracy. Let me start with this. So Thinking about resilience in general, do you keep investing in something deeply, knowing that there's a high likelihood of failure?
Yes, you know this. We just had this discussion, and this is what I'll say. Yes, I get right back up. I get kicked in the face. I get knocked down like that. What was that thing that was like you could punch in? It's a blow up thing that you punch, and it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that's what I am. Someone punches me, and I got knocked down, and I just come right back up for more.
So even if you know you're going to there's a high probability you are going to get punched, you still pop right back up.
But it's life, right? Life punches us. Like, if I went through life thinking I'm not going to get punched or that, this isn't going to happen, when I did get punched, I'd be even worse off. I mean, I think that's the thing is that death is a certainty on this planet, right? And so the people who are most devastated and cannot move on, it's like they didn't think that, they blocked it out. This isn't going to happen to me or whatever. And I do find things devastating. Mostly in my life, it's been loss of, relationship. And I still keep doing it. I still keep, I keep doing it. Why? Am I a masochist? No, I'm very happy. But I'm going to just bring this all up because we're talking about it before. I just met somebody a couple weeks ago. I was really into her. She just slapped me down, right? Not physically. She kicked my teeth in. It was a total shock to me. You're like, how come now you're into somebody else so quickly? And the opportunity came where somebody else approached me and we've gotten to know each other and we both like each other. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but I can't imagine cutting myself off from the possibility of life or love or connection because somebody else or life had done something else to me. I mean, I just had therapy the other day after having, those two conversations that we had in the previous episodes. I went to my therapist and I said, okay, I'm ready to do this inner work that I've been ignoring for 6 years. And she said something that was so profound to me that was she kind of listed off the stuff I've been through in life. And it's like, oh my God, my old police partner used to say to me, if anyone had gone through half of what you've gone through, they would kill themselves. I mean, that's not a very PC thing to say, but that's what he would say to me. And he's like, God, you just keep taking it. And I do, because I guess my love of living, it's part of this life is these unpleasant things happen, these sad things happen to us. And are we going to just shut down and not live life? Or can we say simultaneously, these kind of sad and bad things are going to happen to us, and yet here I am looking at the flowers. Here I am enjoying other things. I'm enjoying connection with others, I don't know how to shut myself off from life, but I do know how to be resilient. Yeah.
I mean, and you just said, you're like that, whatever that, I don't even know what that thing's called, but I had it as a kid.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone, you punched it. It's what kind of thing is that for kids in the 70s? You punch this, you could have, it was like a bozo or something.
Yeah, it was like inflatable, weird looking.
And it had the bottom of it was heavy, so it would go back up and back up. But maybe that's what happened to us in the 1970s. They're punch this thing and watch it get back up. And keep
that was the
punching
message.
It,
that was the
this is
message.
what's going to happen to you in life.
Exactly. Okay, Gen Xers, here you go. You're just like this punching bag. Just continue to get
That is
back
what
up.
happened to us, right?
Exactly.
Punch,
Exactly.
get back up. Punch, get back up. Punch, get back up.
Well, that is true. Well, so it's interesting. If I were to look at this question, and you said it right when you started talking, you were saying, like, even if you know you were going to get punched, you would still pop back up. And there was a study that was done. It was really interesting. I don't even remember who did this, but they basically said that if you go in for a major surgery of some sort and you're told, like, oh, your healing is going to be great, you're going to get through this real quickly, and you tend to have much more of a emotional setback than if someone just said, this is going to, like, suck. You're going to have like 8 weeks of this. It's going to be terrible, but then it will be fine.
Right.
Like, it's almost like if you know the stakes and you still engage in it, then you're not as disappointed or overwhelmed when you have to bounce back. But if you have to try to bounce back from kind of these unrealistic expectations, it's really hard to.
Right.
So that always really stuck in my mind. It's like this kind of just being really honest with yourself, or having other people be honest about, like, what does this really mean? Right? Like the hard truth.
Yeah. And I follow this woman. She does resilience conferences. They're like a big deal in the world. And she's a Holocaust survivor, Dr. Edith Eger, and her book I read, The Choice. And, how can anyone get over the Holocaust? And she never got over it, right? Her parents died. All these things happened. She was like 60 pounds at the end of it. And yet she said, I have to make a choice to live. I'm still here, and I have to find a way to live and to enjoy the things that I can have in this world. And, it is a choice. It's a mental choice. It's not easy. And I'm not saying that to be flippant. Like, it's hard. It's hard work. And it is. Yeah, I know I'm going to get slapped. I know it. You just basically told me that. Watch out. And I'm like, okay, but let's say I got totally in love. I met like the most processed person who had no drama, no baggage, no nothing. And then they got struck by a bus. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
you don't want to prevent yourself from like loving.
No, because we're all imperfect, and we're all susceptible to all kinds of tragedy. So it's like, even if I had the perfect circumstances at the perfect time with the perfect person, with everything, which I'm not that person. Obviously, I'm not perfect in any way. So it's like, even if I had all that, what if the universe then intervened to get rid of that person? Yeah. And it's like, I know it is so hard.
Well, and the older we get, the reality is the more kind of background, skeletons, baggage, experiences, whatever you want to call them, we all have. And so there isn't really anybody that has this, like, no history, right? Like, that would be
and do
kind
you
of
want
alarming.
Somebody who comes to you? Exactly. Wouldn't that be more alarming if someone who was an adult came to you with no history? But it's like, look at the people and how do they handle their history, and are they resilient? Is that person resilient?
Right.
Well, and can we help others to be resilient?
And I know you and I were talking about this morning while I was out on my morning walk. We were talking about how you and I have had a number of kind of hard things happen to us at the hands of other people, right? Kind of mistreatment. And we have continued to, like, this, whatever, I don't want to call it a punching bag because that's not really what it was designed to be, but whatever this kid's toy was, we continued to get up. That's when I said to you, we have learned to let go. We have learned to forgive. We have learned to move through life without putting up walls because of the past pain. And we don't hold on to things so that they scar over. We've both done a really good job of that. And we keep showing up as our full 100% selves, right? To everything we do, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, a new friendship, whatever. And we haven't been jaded. And I remember saying to you, and that's a facet of resilience, right? Continuing to get up. And I said, that's just something that not a lot of people have. They just get beat down and they stay down, and sometimes their circumstances are a lot worse than ours. And I get that, but I'm just saying there are people who hold on to things. They hold on to resentment. They don't forgive. They don't move on, and they live in that. And I said, I would not want to be one of those people. So even if bad things happen to me, I would rather know how to move on and be gracious with myself in that than sit in the muck.
Right. And it's hard. I mean, bad things are going to happen going forward to both of us. more people that we love are going to die. And, you know, maybe we are, I don't know. I mean, we are eventually, but it's like, I'm here. I'm still here. Right. And I've had some real sad times in my life, and it's not like I'm Pollyanna about it. You know, it's not like I'm ignoring that. It's just that, what choice do I have? What choice do I have?
You can live in misery and be stuck in that place of misery and untrustworthy and all that stuff, right? Looking at the glass half empty, or you can move forward, because bad stuff is going to happen to good people, and it does all the time.
Well, and I want to say one other thing. It's like people always say, oh, people can't change, or they are what they are. And somebody had asked me that question just recently, like, well, how come these relationships didn't work out? And I said, like, I'm a different person now. I've done so much work. I've done work with my therapist, with my astrologer, with my psychic, with understanding of past lives, of understanding how we fit together in this life, and the relationship work, you know. I put a lot of work into relationships, right? And I mean, I'm your like spiritual guide apparently on this lifetime go around, but you're always telling me like how to handle things better, because, you know, my original nature is to like be reactive. And so I pretty much run everything by you first, and you're able to temper that for me. So you're like one of my lifelines. You're like I don't want to go through life saying, oh, I don't want to talk to my friends. I don't want to reach out. I don't want to get help. Like, I'm not like that. Like, I need help. I'm not a perfect person. So I need the help of others, you know, to keep me in line. You know, I put these tattoos on my arm that are the Buddhist thing, and it's meant to show me like, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice to be resilient. It's a daily practice to choose to make the good choices, right?
Right. And that's the thing is, like, when I think about being stuck, sometimes it takes every effort in the world to try to get unstuck, and then we just can't for whatever reason. Something doesn't work out, and we go back into the status quo, and then we just stay there because we think for some reason we're not meant to get out of that stuckness, or we don't have the strength. But we have people around us, right? We have support. We have, you know, maybe it's motivation, self-motivation, or motivation from others, or just someone to lean on, right? Like that is important. You know how long you and I have been talking about your job, right? And you're just not being happy in litigation and feeling really, really stuck, and just been talking through all these options over and over and over until you could finally feel like something was in alignment with you. And so you're not stuck alone. Let's just put it that way. You don't have to be. And if you don't have any friends, go out and make some friends. I'll tell you, you can get on Facebook, and there's like a bazillion groups, and people are like, I'm looking for friendship. Good. Reach out.
I was working with a person the other night who's an introvert, and she didn't even look at me when she said, I need more friends. And then I said, well, awesome. I thought we were being friends. I thought, you know, and she's like, well, you have so many friends. And I said, so I can have more friends, and then you can come and be friends with my friends, and you can come to the party. And that's the thing, is like, you know, I didn't always have this attitude. I wasn't always this person. And I also was, you know, okay, you're so worried about me, I'm going to get hurt again. And I just got hurt, you know, literally like last week. And it was really hurtful and devastating to me. But like, I'm also, even though that has happened, I'm also around people who, even though they've hurt me and maybe will hurt me, they're also building me up in a way that I was with other people where I had much longer, more stable relationships where the building up just didn't happen, right? And there was kind of like annoyance at who I was. And my therapist said that the other day, like, you know, you have to be with somebody who like can appreciate all of you. And even if for their own reasons they have to leave or they need to do whatever, like in the meantime, I do feel appreciated. And I feel like that's what's happening in my life also, is that I'm around people who are building me up. I mean, even I went to a party the other day, and the straight guy's like, I just love you and I want to hang out with you. And I'm like, awesome, let's hang out, right? Like, no weirdness. And it's just like, I don't know. And I went to happy hour with a friend last night. She's like, you're manifesting everything. And I said, yeah, and it's actually scaring me. It's like happening so fast. It happened with the job. It happened with stand-up. It happened with the other job at the pickleball club. It happened like, and I'm just putting these things out there. And I feel like the more I clear, like I'm not going to have negative energy. So that girl hurt me. She really hurt me. She really, really hurt me deeply. but I have to move on. Like there's no possibility of us talking. She doesn't want that. And she's not going to give me a real reason as to what happened. So like, I can't live in that space of like, why, because she made that choice, do I have to suffer?
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly. Well, and I think it's interesting when you're talking about that. We were talking about this too. It's like you're manifesting everything, and it's almost as if one manifest kind of opens and comes to fruition, it opens the portal for another one to come, and so it's like this domino effect. And so I also think about this idea of sometimes, like we've talked about it with Cassie on this series this season, about how sometimes what you want isn't really maybe even what you need, right? And so I can think about like manifesting when I was in a relationship at one point where I was stuck. I felt really stuck, and I wanted out, but I was sort of addicted to the relationship, but I also wanted to give it a chance, but I was trapped. I was kind of swirling in the space of being stuck. And I looked back for a long time and really regretted, like, why didn't I get myself unstuck? Why didn't I do that? And, but my alignment, my alignment was not for me to get out of the relationship when I felt that way. My alignment was for me to stay in that relationship for a bit longer so that I could learn a whole lot of stuff about myself to be a better person moving on. And I would never have gotten that. So sometimes we think we want something and we don't necessarily get it. So when you look back and you think, okay, well, that was a struggle, right? Like an unnecessary struggle. It wasn't. It was a necessary struggle for my spiritual journey. And just like yours, right? Like being, in that situation with that one woman was, on the outside looks like an unnecessary struggle, but it's not, right? It's all part of the journey. So the manifest is bigger than just any one thing. And so what you're manifesting now, even though it feels like distinct manifests, it's really this idea of getting unstuck from your life because you want more fulfillment and you want more purpose that aligns with who you are, which is to be a giver and a giver. And so what's happening is your job and your relationships and all those things are in alignment with that larger manifest. And for me, with my relationship, my larger manifest was to feel at peace with myself and clear that I'd made the right choice. And I would not have felt that way had I left when I was, quote, stuck by the definition of stuck. And so it's so interesting how all of this kind of comes together when we look at the larger kind of piece of how manifesting and stuck and resilience all play together.
Couldn't say it better. Now I can't even speak.
You're at a loss for words. This has only happened a couple of times before.
I know. That was really good. And it's true. And you think of it as like the bigger universal picture. And like, I can go over every decision I've ever made. And why didn't I do this? And why did I do that? And I've done that about the police department. I've talked about this 100 times. Why didn't I go back? And my best friend always says, you might have been saved. Had you gone back, you might have been killed. We don't know. Like, and it's not like I'm like, oh, I just move forward in life. I do still think, oh, I should go back, or I should have gone back, or whatever. But that time has passed now, and I just have to accept it. And that's how I feel about the relationship thing. It's like, that time has passed. Yeah, sure, I really like that person, but that person didn't like me back enough to talk to me. So why would I make myself suffer? Like, I think that was my learning lesson for that 12-day thing, is that don't let that person. And I told her when I met her, I said, I'm so happy. I'm really happy with where I am. I just got back from Thailand. I'm like living the life I always want to live, and nobody is going to bring me down. And then she did hurt me. And I have to say, don't let that person bring you down. You don't even know what that person's issues are. So don't take them on yourself. And it's not fair to me that when I then meet somebody else that I put up barriers because somebody else hurt me. It's not fair. It's not fair to me.
We're talking about with the walls and stuff. It's one thing to know that you went through a struggle, having to experience what that ended up being for you. But at the same time, you don't have to live in that struggle once it's over. And that's what some people do. Like, they might get unstuck from the situation, but then get stuck in their own mentality of it, right? Like if you were not moving forward and trying to get past that situation or processing it, or people who are, again, beating themselves up years and years. I shouldn't have done that. And like, even what you're talking about with the police department, right? It's like, I should have gone back. You're stuck in that mentality, even though you're not stuck in the situation. So learning to let that go gives you a sense of peace, gives you some freedom. And it's really hard to bounce back, right? Have resilience if we're also stuck in a space where we don't think we deserve that bounce back,
right.
or that we don't think we should be doing it because of whatever our expectations are or our limitations, limiting beliefs. But so the stuckness isn't always physical. It isn't always like you're stuck in a relationship or you're stuck in a job. We can be stuck in the way that we think about things. So
Right.
how do you bounce back if you're still beating yourself up about the past?
Well, but that's why you have to go to therapy or an astrologer or something like that. And we've talked about this before. I was doing coaching with Bethany for months and months. It was so helpful, and it moved me out of several stuck places, like several. It was really helpful. So you have to find the right people that can help you move forward. And, my therapist asked me the other day, like, oh, what did she say? Like, it creeped me out so bad. It was like, I almost actually physically I felt nauseous. I thought I was going to throw up. It was like, don't you deserve, or don't you want like true, like really someone loving you? Like, I can see I blocked out the question. It was basically about like, don't you want true, like actual love, like a loving relationship, blah, blah, blah. And it actually made me want to puke. Like I was like, oh no.
Like a regular loving relationship. You want the messy though. You like them.
But no, this was the thing, is that when she said that to me, it went too deep to the core, which is what we talked about with Cassie. Like, that's the work I still have to do, because maybe I don't think I'm worthy of that, like, yeah, it freaks me out to hear that, because I'm like, oh my God, maybe I don't think I should have that, because I didn't have that. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have it. And then she went through all of that. And then we started to do that work of like, why do I have that feeling? I have that feeling because I feel that I'm not worthy. Why? And that's the work that I still have to do. And so I tabled that with her till our next session, and I've been avoiding that for 6 years. And it's not just the messy, it's that like, I can meet people where they are. Do then they sometimes hurt me? Yes, it's true. Right? But everything I'm learning from, as painful as it is. And so I think that's what resilience, like, and being unstuck is like, these things are painful. These things in life can be painful. We have to accept that, and then we have to move forward while acknowledging it. It's not like you're, not acknowledging it, but
right. Well, it's like the surgery thing. Again, if you kind of know what you're in for, I think that's the thing. If you know what you're in for, you're less surprised if and when it happens. And so if you know that part of your bouncing back is that you may bounce back and, you are wholeheartedly like open to whatever happens, and you know that people have situations and you're going into those knowing that they could be muddy, messy, or they could backfire, but you are quite aware of that, then you're able to bounce back if that happens in a better way than someone else is like, everybody is perfect and this is my true love and they can do no wrong, and then all of a sudden are completely disappointed by something. And in that case, then it's hard to bounce back, because you're like, where did I mess up? Where did I miss this? Where did I not see something here? And you're constantly questioning yourself.
But I also think that, like, I say this all the time, comparing is despairing, and it's like, don't compare your suffering or your whatever to other people. But there is, I literally just got back from being with a lot of Burmese refugees. They've lost everything. They were forced to leave their homes, and they can't go to school in Thailand. They can work there, but, they have lost everything. I was with people who really miss their parents or miss, their siblings or their loved ones. And it's like, what can we expect in this life? And I do sometimes feel like, gosh, being a, white American living in 2025, I have so many privileges. I have so few threats to my existence. Things are changing, and as a, lesbian, like, things are coming to get us. So I'm aware of that, but I'm also spending time in my life with people who have lost everything. And when I bring them my old t-shirts and bras, they are excited. And it's like, how can I, as much as pain, emotional pain as I'm caused by, certain relationship stuff, it's like, okay, but really in the whole, world, what is that pain, right? And will there be more pain? And how lucky am I to not experience certain kinds of pain? So I think part of it is like looking at it as relative. Well, what is that, you know? And to be resilient, to say like, okay, well, and this sounds so dismissive. It could be worse, but not that you should sit there and say that to yourself or everybody, but it's true. Life is just hard. There's no guarantee. Nobody ever said that this life is going to be so easy. So yes, it's like the surgery thing. If you accept that, the premise that this life is not going to be easy, and I'm here to learn lessons, and I'm here to experience all of the range of human emotion, then I'm better able to handle it, you know? And that is a thing, the range of human emotion. Like, what emotions are we meant to feel in this earth in this lifetime, you know?
Exactly.
And it's not that, oh, I just deserve happiness, or I feel very happy and I still am getting kicked in the face. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, your mom died and in a terrible way, and you still can feel joy and happiness, even though that is a sadness that lives inside of you and is always present. How do you do that? How are you doing that? How did you, how are you resilient from that? I mean, we talked about it, like, you hang out with your brother to make sure you do that. You honor your mother. You don't forget about your mother, but you can't put yourself, like, you can't just not live.
Right. Well, I was reading this really interesting thing about how one of the ways to deal with grief is sometimes you can't make the grief smaller, but you have to make your heart bigger. And if your heart's bigger, the grief just takes up less space. And I thought that's really interesting. And how am I, living? How am I expanding my heart? Right. How am I doing that? I'm doing that through forgiveness. I'm doing that through creating connections with people, like really good, authentic connections. I'm doing it by, trying to be the best parent I can be. I'm trying to do that by giving to my students in the work that I do, and trying to contribute things like this podcast, and just opening my heart bigger and bigger and bigger, so that I will never forget my mom, but that grief will just take up less space. And that's part of how I am resilient, right? And so we think about that too. I mean, we've talked about a couple different strategies, right? Is having realistic expectations about kind of the future, helps you pop right back up. It could be also having just kind of some relative, again, not comparison, but just kind of context, right? Like, the things that we're experiencing might not be really that bad in comparison to some things we could be experiencing or other people are. And then also just really this widening your heart. Because I think that helps me get back up. If I let the grief be 75% of my heart, I'm going to feel sad all the time. Right. And so, and it's really hard. Some people, the grief has shrunk a tiny bit, but it's hard sometimes, and like experiences, like I said earlier, the more experiences we have, the more of those things we have in our hearts, right? We have to carry. We have exes and relationships. We have our childhood traumas. We have bullied at work. I mean, who knows? All of these experiences, great loss, and we have them, and we just keep sticking them in our heart. So we have to do a better job of making our hearts bigger, and not just simply trying to shrink these things. I mean, both have to happen. But that's, to me, one of the ways that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, me too. The possibility of what is coming, that, good things are coming. Yes, bad things, and understanding bad things will come too, but also good things. And even, you can find love in the weirdest places. You can find, I don't know if you've read Viktor Frankl's, The Meaning of Life. He was also a Holocaust survivor. And he said that the people who survived a lot of those camps, it's because they had something, a lot of it was, they were being driven, by love for their children, love for their spouse, love for their parents who they wanted to see again, not knowing if they ever would, but it was that hope that kept them, going. And I guess if you just continually find hope, that to understand that bad things are going to happen, and yet also good things are going to happen, Exactly.
Well, if you stay stuck, you stay stuck. It's like the enemy that right? Like, it's like the devil, don't they say that? And yeah, but you could take the chance that it could be worse if you get unstuck, but there's also a good chance it could be a lot better, and you'll never know. And then you're going to live with that possible regret of, I could have gone back to school. I could have, made this effort to ask this person out on a date, whatever the case may be. And I don't live in a world of regrets. Like what there, you can do those with question cards and it's like, what is your biggest regret? I don't really have a lot of regrets.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I don't know about you if you have regrets.
I did. I had more before. I did have a lot before, but I'm not doing that anymore. That's the thing. The police department, medical school, all of those things.
Yeah. Well, letting go of those expectations or those hopes and dreams and those kinds of things. Yeah, I don't have a lot of regrets. The only one that I say when I get that card is interesting. Like, it's not a regret, but it's just kind of like a question. I would have been interested to know what it would have been like to play professional basketball, or at least be on the basketball team when I was in college. I try out for a basketball team. I thought that would have been cool. I don't know that it's a regret because I don't think it was the road not chosen or anything. I just think, I wonder what my path would have been like. And then,
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the one. And then I'll say like, oh, I wish I would have studied abroad in college. But neither of those are things that like I look back and I like am harboring regret. I just make a choice and I live with it.
Well, I want to do, it's so weird because this showed up on my Facebook page the other day, gay camp. And I was like, oh my God, I never got to go to camp as a kid. And I saw these TV shows where people went to camp and they did all these things. And I'm like, I'm going to sign up for gay camp as an adult because I want to go to camp. Like,
good for you.
That's something that will be like fun, right? I mean, I kind of go to camp in Thailand. I mean, it's essentially camp. It's true now that I think of that. It's more,
but this is
I want to have the fun too.
You can make me a friendship bracelet.
Oh yeah, you could come to the camp too. We could go together. And that's the other thing is like how fun. Like I just never had those formative experiences growing up, paddling in a canoe and meeting people and hanging out in the dorm. It's funny because now when I go to the sanctuary, I beg for my own room so that I can work at night. But truly also, I just don't want to share a room with somebody else. So, okay, now I'm thinking about this and I'm like, camp. Well, if you're in a dorm, that's different. Like, I don't like being, you know what I mean, in an intimate room with somebody else and like, ooh, especially in Thailand because you've got stomach issues, probably a lot of people.
Well, maybe
I haven't.
Instead of camp, you need to go to like an Olivia cruise where you have your own room.
Oh yeah, well the Olivia cruise when you have to get your own room is so expensive. But actually, now that I'm thinking about that video from the camp, like there were people going down the water slide and stuff, and I think 1 week of camp would be so fun because you meet these people who went to camp. They're usually East Coasters, who grew up like going to camp every summer. And like, that was so defining for them. And it was so, I think that really, I don't know if people are still doing camp, but like it made connections, lifelong connections. Oh, yeah. I didn't have that. I grew up in like a weird cornfield that was like, children of the corn type stuff. And it's like, I never got those really cool, I just always was like having to be off on my own doing weird stuff,
Well, see here, now you can change this from if it's a regret or just a kind of wishful childhood memory you wish you had kind of thing. But now you can go to camp. So that's the thing.
So find those things, right?
Find those things so that you don't sit in regret, you don't sit in resentment, do something, move. And that's the thing. It's like, when we talk about this idea of resilience, right? Sometimes what you just tried doesn't work, so do something different, right? And so like you may decide, I didn't go to camp as a kid and I want to go to camp, right? I'm going to do that. And then you look it up and you're like, I don't want to like sleep in a tent with 4 people. I don't know. But maybe you find something that feels like camp to you, that has a lot of those things. And you're like, I want to do this, and so you can do whatever
you can find stuff like that. Well, you just brought up something I have to talk about because you didn't come to the Machu Picchu trip because of what was happening with your mother. And I asked you, do you want me not to go? I'll not go. But you're like, no, I feel like you have to go on this journey. So I went. I did the Machu Picchu trek. The first day I got to Peru, I met that young gal. We started hanging out as friends. And then when I went on the actual trip, she wasn't going. And I had to share a tent with someone. And it was awesome. It was a young Scottish girl, like in her 20s. And like, it was a blast. And it never gave me the creeps.
Oh. Well, that's
Isn't that interesting? I know I act like I'm so creeped out. And then I'm like, well, I was a total stranger in a tent and it never once. And then the 2 guys from the Netherlands were in the tent next door and they would make fun of my Netflix show. And it's like, it was fun. Actually, that's kind of like camp. I mean, we went on a trek for a week and we stayed. I mean, it's true. It's very interesting. I did actually enjoy that.
There you go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's transition this as, kind of action oriented and moving forward. You've been stuck. You try to get out of your stuckness, and the resilience is tricky, right? So you're feeling like down. You're feeling like maybe you've lost a little bit of air in your little punching bag thing, and you remember when that would lose a little air and it would sort of sink.
Then it didn't really work.
So now we have to think about how do you move forward, because you and I have talked about some strategies that have worked for us, right? And how we can kind of keep moving forward, right? Part of it is mindset. Part of it is just going out and doing it again and trying it again. Part of it is shifting things. Part of it is forgiveness and letting go and just saying it is what it is, expecting, understanding that struggle and pain is just part of life. These are things that we've done, but sometimes that's overwhelming. So let's talk about some smaller things that people can do to build their resilience. And here's a couple things, and then I want to see, if you've used any of these. But start with, we call like low-hanging fruit. So if it's like you got burned in a relationship and you feel like you're stuck in this mentality of I'm never going to love again, don't try to, get on 14 dating apps and try to go out with 40 people. But, start with low-hanging fruit. Maybe say hi to someone at the grocery store, or maybe get on one app, right? But if you try to do too much and burst out of the gate, life has a tendency of kind of swinging back at you. And so what can you do to start with some low-hanging, easy fruit to build up your confidence to say, okay, I'm on the right track? Have you done that? Or, I know you're kind of an out the gate kind of person, but have you ever done it with like a low-hanging fruit where you started small?
That's a good question, Corey. I don't know. I can't answer that right now. Probably not. Probably not. I don't really do that. I just jump right in. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to really contemplate that.
I'll put that on your list for a therapist.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I do this all the time. This is how I actually do it.
Right.
And I also recalibrate. That's my favorite word in my life, is I recalibrate. So I stay put for a second until I can get like a mindset shift, until I can figure out a little bit of a different direction that I want to go, like a little tweak, and then until I can get the energy back up to go do it. And then I go and I try it. It's like, it's kind of like a mouse in a maze, and I go and I hit a dead end, and then I come back to the beginning and I reset. I'm like, okay. And then I try something else. I usually don't give up on the goal, but the process often will change. And it's usually not so over investing that I'm like so far down the rabbit hole that I can't get myself out of any one of the ways in which I go. Because usually I know very quickly if what I'm doing is kind of the right direction. And then if it isn't, I turn around and I stop. And I try something else. But sometimes people get really kind of, hell-bent on pushing forward, and they know that they're doing it a way that isn't really all that productive, but they're going to do it anyways. And that, I guess it's resilience, but is that really sustainable?
I don't know. That's what you would say about me. I guess it's sustainable in the long run of life. It's just, I think it's personal preference.
Yeah.
What's your style?
How much energy do you have? I remember last night I went to the rock climbing gym, and I was going on this one that was I had done last week. It was very, very hard, and but I was going to do it again last night, and I got partway up, and I was so out of breath, and I'm like hanging there by my arms only. And I started thinking, I'm going to get up this thing hell or high water. And I practically used just my arms to get up to the top. And I felt like such a sense of accomplishment. But then I realized I don't think that I improved my skills doing that. I actually didn't use my feet.
Yeah, but didn't you, maybe you didn't improve your skills, but didn't you improve your confidence?
I don't know.
You got up there.
My arm strength. Yeah.
You said hell or high water. You got up there.
I did.
Next time, do it in a better way.
That's what I'm thinking. And so I celebrated getting to the top. I was resilient. I got back, but I fought to get there. And I was like, that really was not the easiest way. It was, I took the road much more difficult road to get there. Right. And then, next time I'm going to actually try to do better with my feet in the right place, because I think it will be less effort. It'll be less struggle if I do it the correct way. And there, in life, there isn't always a correct way, but sometimes there are ways that are just like paths that are a little easier to take than others. And so,
I agree.
So I think that's important. This is one of my favorites, and I think this is a really good one for you, Tracy. I want your take on it. Is you're resilient, you're moving forward, you're set on this, whether that punching bag, you pop right back up again, is don't burn it all down. So like now you're all, you've had a setback and now you're like, okay, now I'm just going to, move forward. Like when you had a setback, you got out of a relationship, you're like, I'm just going to sell my house and get a van.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some ways that's resilience because you're moving forward. But the question is how do you know if that's the right path forward?
Well, I talked about this last night, actually, with someone, and how you would tell me, just give me 6 months. And I said, my God, I bought that 3 or 4 times now because you've said that to me. And like, just give me 6 months. And I'm like, God, it's 4 years later. What the hell? But yeah, I mean, I think, don't burn it. What's the point of burning it down?
Exactly.
I mean, you have to set boundaries. There's some situations you just have to get out of and whatnot. But if absent like abuse or, awfulness or whatever, like, don't burn it down. Just take it. Like, I mean, this sounds so hypocritical for me to say because you're actually the one who stopped me from burning it down. So I really can't answer this because my nature, is to burn it down.
Mm-hmm.
Run away, burn it down, whatever. But I am totally changing it as a person. And again, my therapist, my astrologer, everyone has played a part in that. And yes, ultimately, I'm glad I didn't burn it down,
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking about my house this morning. It's like me. It's raw. It's minimalist. It's, a work in progress. Like, I've had 6 houses, but this is my favorite. I mean, I don't have the pool anymore. I don't have all that stuff. But, like, it's me. Like, this house is me, So life is just, don't burn it down because if you burn things down, there really is no going back,
That's the thing. Like if you would have sold this place, you wouldn't have been able to buy it back.
Yeah, you reminded me. You told me that.
I know, because I told you I would have bought it.
I priced myself out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I priced myself out of Seattle. So, and I mean, I could go back and work work a lot, but why do I want to do that? I'm in a position where I don't have to work that much, and I can do things like this for fun.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's another one that I like too is take the small wins, one bite at a time, right? Sometimes when we think of resilience, like we think of it as achieving the whole thing, like bouncing back. Like we got out of a tough relationship, for instance, and so the solution to that or the ultimate outcome is that we are in a great relationship. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're resilient. Resilience is saying like you got some confidence back or you've figured out your own happiness. You've taken on a new hobby, right? Like these are the small wins. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be this big thing. When have you ever seen anything in your life where they've had, like you've seen some small wins come from some big setbacks?
You mean for me in my life?
Yeah.
My personal? Well, I mean, I think after that breakup a few years ago where I was like devastated and then I went and played pickleball every night with my friends at the park. Yeah. I don't even play at that park anymore, but it saved my life. Like it saved my psyche. It saved me. That community and that time was so like helpful for me. And so I didn't get the relationship back. I didn't get to feel better about myself. None of that. But I played pickleball with friends and it was a great community and it really lifted me up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a great example, especially when you have a win that isn't necessarily directly related to the setback, right? It's like we have to take the small wins that happen and, or else it's going to get overwhelming. That's why I say like one bite at a time. Like the whole idea is getting unstuck is just getting a little bit unstuck, right? Maybe both feet are stuck and you get one foot out. That's just such an accomplishment. Just ride with it, right?
Well, right. And the fact that you didn't let this situation defeat you, I mean, that's a win, right? Like you actually like got back up. The fact that you get back up, that's a win.
I think so too. Too. Well, we have covered a lot of ground today with resilience. And just to recap a little bit, we talked about some, mindset changes. We've talked about some actual tactical things you can do with goals, not burning it down, going for low-hanging fruit, taking the small wins. We've talked about expanding your heart to make grief smaller. We've talked about understanding that pain and struggle are just part of life. We've talked about how it's important to keep things in context. It really, it's just like every other episode, whatever resonates with you, run with it, right? I mean, some things are things that work really well for Tracy. Some things are things that work really well for me in terms of resilience. But the idea is, and I think one of the things we both can agree on is that you're not alone in your process. There are people there who will love and support you along the way. And sometimes they might not be the most obvious ones. So it's really interesting how when we have major setbacks, certain people come out of the woodwork that you just didn't expect. And you may find that neighbor next door is the one that's most concerned about your health and is coming over every day and bringing you food. So really open yourself up and open your heart up to people who want to be there for you. And if you don't have that social circle, there's lots of really wonderful people out there that want to meet people like you. So put yourself out there and meet and connect, and you're not alone in this.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool.
People can reach out to us.
Of course.
If they ever listen to our podcast.
And jump on our Rock That Relationship community on Facebook. We do have a community group, so connect with others there. Well, folks, until our next episode, go out there and rock those relationships. If you liked what you heard, check out our show notes for resources from today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Rock That Relationship, and go to our website at rockthatrelationship.com for updated episodes and more great information.
Thanks for listening. Now go rock those relationships.